Well, I debated a professor at the University of Wyoming, got his PhD in science from Stanford. He stands up and says, you know, I really resent it the way you Christians try and use science to prove that God exists. And I had to, in my comeback, I had to say, sir, I agree with you totally. It is totally intellectually dishonest for a Christian to try and use science to prove that God exists. But, sir, I asked, would you not have to agree that it is equally dishonest for an atheist to try and use science to disprove God's existence? He said, absolutely correct. I said, fine. Then why, when I was at Harvard, did I have to listen to Harvard freshmen tell me how in biology class Stephen Gould was intimidating their theism with evolution? He said, I feel that Gould should be reprimanded. I agree with him 100%. Science is a study of process, how the machine works, how the process works. I'm not talking process. I'm talking philosophy. The question, is it more reasonable to believe that behind the intricate process of this cosmos there is an intelligent mind, or is it more plausible to believe behind the incredibly intricate process there's no intelligent mind? It's chance and fate. For me, it's a simple answer. All of my experience in life tells me behind the designed article of clothing, there's a tailor. It didn't come together as a result of a tornado sweeping through a cotton field. It came about as a result of an intelligent tailor. How can I prove that this man has an intelligent mind? I cannot prove it. The reason I believe the man has an intelligent mind is I listen to his articulate speech, I see the way he dresses himself in an orderly fashion, and I conclude between his two handsome ears lies an intelligent mind. I cannot prove that God exists, but the order and design of the cosmos, of the human eye, the central nervous system, the laws of nature, clearly point me to some type of intelligent mind behind it all. It seems to me common sense. It seems to me backed up by my experience in life.
We cannot verify, okay, we're talking about dead man rising from the grave. So,
learn it from someone.
So, you know, if you're talking about someone who believes that that happened, how can you know that that's actually the truth? Say somebody tells me David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear. They saw it, they believe it. How can they convince me, who didn't see it, that that happened?
Right. Well, what you do is you look them in the face and you start asking why. And you don't stop asking why. You just keep on asking, why do you believe that? What is the evidence that you believe, that what you believe is true? And you seek to understand what led that person to that. All right, well, in regard to David Copperfield, we can go out and talk with David Copperfield. And we can figure out, what's David Copperfield into? And did he really make the Statue of Liberty disappear, or didn't he? Is he a magician, or did he really make the thing disappear? Was it an illusion, or was it reality?
What are we talking about with the resurrection? Is it an illusion or is it reality? How can you say that it's reality if it's somebody's account? I mean, how can you take their word as a believer in this event? How can you take their word to be absolute truth of the historic event rather than believing in something that they saw and that they believe in?
Well, you push it back and you go to the source documents, the Gospels. And you ask, okay, I'm going to read these things skeptically. I'm going to ask, first of all, did Christ really die? Now, the interesting thing is the Gospel of John records an interesting tidbit of information. The Gospel of John records that a Roman soldier stuck a spear in the side of Christ, and an issue of watery serum separate from clotted blood flowed from his side. Well, they didn't understand that medically in the first century, but we understand medically today that that's a sign of death. Massive heart failure, clotting of the arteries. The guy was dead. He just didn't lapse into unconsciousness and resuscitate, in other words. Then we read, they took his body off the cross, put it in a tomb, and they set a Roman guard to make sure that nobody would steal his body. Now, the disciples were not expecting him to rise from the dead. They were scared. They didn't understand. And they were deserting Christ. But 3 days after he dies, he appears risen from the dead, first of all, to some grief-torn women. And I'm impressed with that. Because a first-century Jewish male would never have a Jewish woman be his eyewitness in order to gain credibility. Because sexism was pathetic in that culture. And women were viewed as chattel. It was horrible. But the record is, Christ first appeared to some grief-torn women. Then he appeared to the apostles. But there was one guy who could have been on the faculty here at UT. His name was Thomas. And he said, not unless I can see Christ with my own eyes, not unless I can take my hand and thrust in the spoon in his side, will I believe. And one night all the disciples are together. Thomas is there. Suddenly Christ stands among them, walks right up to Thomas and says, my man right here. Take your hands, put in the nail prints in my hands. Take your hand and thrust in the spoon in my side. And Thomas stopped doubting and believed. Then in 1 Corinthians 15, written in 50, 51, 52 AD, the Apostle Paul quotes a hymn, a creed, that Christ died for our sins, was buried, rose from the dead, appeared to the apostles, to James, and to over 500 people who saw him risen from the dead, most of whom are still living. And you see that the resurrection of Christ was not made up by a church that was trying to increase its adherents. Right from the get-go, the resurrection of Christ was at the center of the message of these followers of Christ. We have seen this man risen from the dead. Then, one after another, they stood before Roman soldiers, and the Roman soldiers said, acknowledge Caesar as Lord and live, or else maintain that Jesus is Lord and we'll kill you. And every single one of them said, I have seen Jesus risen from the dead, and they died, not for a belief. They died for what they claimed to have seen, the dead Christ risen from the dead. Psychology shows you, people will not die to cover up what they know to be a lie. People will die for a lie, convinced it's true. But these guys died claiming we saw Jesus risen from the dead, he is Lord. Which means if they didn't see him, they were lying.
But this isn't in the Roman writing. There's no record of this slaughter.
Eusebius records it wonderfully.
Schizophrenia is a disease which comes up.
That's right. Jesus was a schizophrenic. And so were Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They were all a bunch of schizophrenics. How on earth can you read the Gospels, the teachings of Christ, and conclude that the guy had mental problems? How on earth can you read the Sermon on the Mount and conclude that Jesus had mental problems? Come on. His resurrection.
When was the last time you saw a resurrection? Of anybody?
Last time I saw it, I never have seen resurrection.
Exactly. Have you ever seen any kind of a phenomenon like that before?
No.
No. So how can you believe something like that?
Because,
yes,
first of all, the evidence is that
dying.
a supernatural God exists, and because a supernatural God exists, he is totally capable of performing a miracle.
So you've seen God, basically?
No, I've seen evidence that God exists.
Like what?
Order and design of the cosmos, light coming from light, not from non-light, moral absolutes pointing us to the fact that there's more to reality than matter and energy, free will.
But I'm sure you can, all right, unless you can you prove that we even exist?
Sir, I can't even prove we're having this conversation.
Exactly. So, when you start talking about all these different things, and what you're basically talking about is whose rhetoric is stronger,
No.
and then you would follow that.
No, sir. No, sir. Right here. I can't prove to you he's sitting here. It is not an issue of rhetoric, whether I stop my hand right there. It is an issue of evidence. The evidence is, he is sitting here, that's why I don't keep swinging through his handsome face. Has nothing to do with rhetoric. Has to do with evidence that the guy's sitting here. I base my life on evidence. I can't prove to you he's there, but boy, the evidence of my eyesight is, he is there. Therefore, I stop when his face begins.
But where's the evidence of resurrection?
That's historical evidence. The historical evidence found in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is that the guy really died on a cross, was really buried, and 3 days later really came alive again.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. Is that's rhetoric. I'm not saying that.
What do you mean that's rhetoric? It is words, yes, but you do agree on that.
Right, and I'm saying that to prove something, in order for them to prove something, they would have to say all these things, and they're doing exactly that.
We already agreed upon the fact we can't prove anything. So
and
don't use proof. I can't use proof.
Okay. But I'm talking about, evidence that they're saying, and while I'm saying proof because that's what they're using, because I'm saying that they're using rhetoric for people to believe in these things. and to believe in Jesus. And belief is irrational. So I mean, it could be.
No, belief is not irrational. It doesn't have to be irrational. It can be irrational. But if your belief is based on solid evidence, that's not an irrational belief.
But then it's not belief.
Yes, it is belief.
I mean, if it's solid evidence, then it's concrete. I mean, there's no belief in it.
Prove to me the University of Texas is going to grant you a diploma on your day of graduation. Prove to me UT is not going to say, hey, let's break tradition. No diplomas this year. It is possible.
Prove to me that you're going to get to heaven even if you do all the things that
I can't
Bible
prove
says.
it.
Then there we go. So that's rhetoric.
But there's evidence that UT is a reliable institution of higher learning. Based on that evidence, you pay a big tuition, you study hard, you get a diploma. That's belief.
Yep.
And that belief is based on evidence. You don't prove UT is going to give you a diploma. The evidence is, if you complete the course of study, if you pay your tuition, they'll give you a diploma. Sir, you have belief. Prove to me your roommate's not going to stick a knife in your back tonight. You can't prove it. Prove to me that your closest friend is not going to stick a knife in your back tomorrow.
I can't.
Exactly.
And I don't have a belief in that, though.
You don't?
I expect anybody to stab me in the back. True. Yes. And I'm from New York, too, so I'm sure you believe that, too. Right?
Well, I think...
Or you know that, I should say.
Although I cannot prove to you that my best friend is not going to stick a knife in my back, there's a lot of evidence that my best friend is not going to stick a knife in my back. That's why when I see my best friend on Wednesday, I'm not going to check her pockets and purse to find out if she got a knife in there.
Okay.
That's belief, sir.
Okay.
When there's so much cosmic activity going on, the chance for something like this to happen, where the energy would come together, there would be a big boom, is infinitely larger than you're making it seem. If you want to talk about plausibility among society, do you think it's more plausible that God came down to the mountain, wrote the Ten Commandments on some stone, and Moses brought him down, or that the first beings got together and said, gee, you think we shouldn't kill each other? Boy, probably not good to sleep with his wife. That's more plausible. Natural law and science coming together and the multitude of things that happen in the cosmos is more plausible.
All right. If what you say is true, that means murder is not absolutely wrong. It's relatively wrong. Because human beings created that moral. Correct?
Even if God
Right?
created
Correct.
it.
All right. Which means, if I choose to murder him, from your perspective, that might be wrong. From my perspective, it might be right. Your worldview demands that you acknowledge you're not really right and I'm not really wrong. I'm not really right and you're not really wrong. It's all relative.
Right, it's relative to the grand scheme, to the majority morality. If there are 10% of the people who think that murdering is correct, then you can judge by the fact that there's 90% of people who are sure that it's wrong, that then in our morality, and morality is a relative thing.
Right.
Morality is not an absolute thing. Our morality changes all the time. So, morally, it is wrong to kill him. If you think it is correct to kill him, then you are under a different moral system that does not mesh with the moral system of the world.
Right.
Correct.
So, you're born in Nazi Germany. Majority of people believe that we better get rid of the Jewish people.
But that's
So
still
that's
a minority.
morally-
We're not talking about a majority of 6 people. We're talking about a majority of the world.
Of the world, I see. So in order to understand what's right and wrong, we need to take a survey of every person on the planet to understand what the majority really believe is true. And then once we've taken that survey and we've gotten the status quo, the majority opinion, then we understand that that's right and wrong?
No, that's not how morality works.
Well, then what are you telling me? What's the basis of morality? I thought you just told me the basis of morality is majority opinion.
It is. But
Thank you. That's what I thought you
what I
said.
did not say was that we needed to take a survey of each individual person to decide what morality was. Rather, morality is something that is accepted. For example, it would be the same thing. If God created morality, then it's relative to what God thought. And tomorrow God would change his mind. And we could all murder each other and it'd be great. So every day we'd have
If
to take
God
a
is that
survey.
way.
So every day we'd have to take a survey of God or
If God were that
or
way.
the Pope or whoever you want to
Right.
survey of and tell them, okay, is it okay to murder today or is still that
Right.
still a bad thing?
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's
No, it's
relative.
not the same thing.
Yes, it is.
Because Jesus Christ insisted that God does not change, that God's character is just, and God has defined injustice very clearly, dehumanizing people, attacking the dignity and sanctity of human life. And because God's character does not change, His definition of justice and injustice does not change.
You try to label other aspects of other religions with your religion. That's where you're encroaching upon the lines of other religions. And I think that's wrong.
Well, obviously, I'm here at the University of Texas to try and persuade you to read the Gospels and look at Jesus. Now, if you accuse me of encroaching on you, I disagree.
What if if a person is in a school where everybody worships fire, and then the people, they come to you and they try to relate their religion with your religion, and you really respect your religion and you don't want to know about their religion, but they're actually relating their religion with you, how would you feel?
And they try to put your religion in their own words.
I see it all the time. People look me in the face and say, Cliff, you're wrong. There is no God. And that's not them encroaching their opinion on me. I want to talk with people. I want to share ideas. That's what a liberal arts education is all about. A free exchange of ideas where we disagree with each other. We're not going to stick a knife in each other's back. We're going to agree to disagree.
Well, what if you don't want to listen to them? They're just coming to you and they're telling you that you're going to hell if you're not following our religion. Even though you think that religion does not have to do anything with your religion. But even
when a Muslim tells me that I'm going to hell because I don't believe Allah and trust Muhammad, I look him in the face and say, I respect your opinion. I obviously totally disagree with you. Now please explain to me why you believe what you believe, and I hope you'll listen to me explain why I believe what I believe. And if an atheist tells me there is no God, I don't say that you're encroaching on me. I say, all right, why do you believe what you believe? And let me explain to you why I believe what I believe. And if someone comes to my door and knocks on the door and they want to talk to me, if I don't have the time, I say, I'm sorry, I don't have the time, and I shut the door.
It's not that I don't have the time. I don't want to hear, okay?
Right, if I don't want to hear what someone says, I say, thank you for your time, I got to leave. Goodbye. And I shut the door.
There's a difference between talking about your religion, okay, and placing your terms, your terminology, your beliefs in a certain religion upon another religion. There's completely different. I'm not saying you don't have the right of speech, that you can't stand out here and talk about Christianity all day, come out here once a week to talk about it. I'm not saying you don't have the right to do that. You have the right to do that all you want. But the fact that you try to, I'm not saying you encroach upon me either. You're encroaching upon other people's religions. Christianity is not the only religion in the world. The fact that you're trying to label other religions, other entities, and other religions with the term God, Jesus, and thereof from the Bible, I think that is completely wrong of the religion Christianity. That is where their flaw is. Not that you don't...
All right. I'm sure that there are followers, I know that there are followers of Christ, and I'm sure that I at times have fallen in when we've been insensitive to other people and to other religions. I'm sure that that's happened, and I'm very sorry for any time that I have done that. Believe me, I work hard not to do that. But I have a big, big disagreement with the definition of tolerance in this culture that says tolerance means Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, and Jesus all said the same thing. That is false. That's being brain dead. That's not being tolerant. I have to study the teachings of the Buddha, I've got to study the Quran, I've got to study the Bhagavad Gita, and I've got to study the New Testament, and I've got to respect each one of those enough to take them for what they say. And if I stand out here and say, all Chinese people look the same, it shows I'm either not Chinese or I haven't taken the time to get to know Chinese people, because in reality, all Chinese people do not look the same. And if I stand out here and say all religions are the same, it shows I'm either not very religious or I haven't taken the time to study and respect the different major world religions. So, we study the different major world religions. I seek to understand what you as a Buddhist believe. And then I seek, if I disagree with you, to express to you, sir, I disagree with you.
I don't say that I don't acknowledge your religion. That's not my point here. My point here is, I have a lot of Christian friends. I came from a very heavy Judeo-Christian area in North Dallas, very, upper class. Mostly everyone was Judeo-Christian in my area. Okay, I'm not arguing the fact that it's not a good religion or whatever, okay? Every religion has flaws. I acknowledge that already. The fact is, from where I came from when I grew up, Judeo-Christian was the only religion that I saw that tried to apply their labels upon other religions. Not, I'm not saying you can talk about your religion all day. I'm not saying that I condemn your religion, okay? I think Judeo-Christian in its own right, the follow is a very good religion. The problem where it comes in is where they try to apply themselves to every single religion that exists.
Well, what do you mean when you say apply themselves to every other religion?
Terms, stories, just try to convert everything into, this is because, okay, this is the way it was because we defined it, okay, according to the Bible. because everybody's following a general good. There is no superior entity in Buddhism, okay? The fact that they follow, karma, Buddhism. I don't need to get into Buddhism. The fact is that they don't try to they don't say there's a God, but then just like a while ago, you termed Buddhisms are trying to follow a general God. There is no God, okay?
Right.
There is no God.
No God.
Christianity, there is a God.
Right.
The fact that you try to apply terms to other religions, I think that's where you're encroaching upon other religions. I'm not saying that I don't acknowledge your religion.
By me saying Buddha was agnostic when it comes to the issue of God is encroaching?
No. But the fact that you said that all Buddhisms were trying to follow a God and thus it is your Christian God, that's incorrect.
I never said that.
You said
Buddhists are not following Jesus.
Right. You said that Buddhism, Islam, all the major religions in the world try to follow a general good, and that is basically God. Your God. That's incorrect. There's no such term as a God in Buddhism. This is just an example, okay? I'm not saying this is the only thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've miscommunicated. One of my pieces of evidence for the existence of God is that every culture is filled with human beings who have an innate longing to know God. Not the Judeo-Christian God, necessarily, but we have a deep desire to know God. And anthropology shows us that. And my point was simply, due to the universality of this drive to know God, I feel that that's one piece of evidence that indeed there is some type of God. That's all I was saying.
Well, do you kind of see what I'm saying? We believe that there is no greater immortal being or some superior being that exists. The fact that you say that every religion is trying to find a greater being, a greater God, or trying to follow, you can say that you're trying to say in your own words, but the fact is you're already applying other religions to what you believe in. That is wrong. And the fact that you're doing it minorly, but a lot of people misuse that and they try to preach other religions and try to denounce other religions through Christianity. But it's happened to me before, okay? You might not do it.
I understand.
You cannot place yourself in his condition.
Right.
Because you
I'm not
are
placing
already
myself in your condition.
You are already you happen to be in a religion which already dominates the whole of the globe, right? And you cannot see his point of view because you are not the minority religion. You're not one of the people who adhere to the minority religion, and you are not imposed by the people who are with the majority religion. That is why you cannot communicate with them right now.
Exactly.
Sir, I'm in a minority at the University of Texas. I'm in a minority in the United States.
Sense that most of the people in the world believe in one God. You're a majority in that sense, and that is why you're trying to relate your religion with the majority of the religion.
That's not what I was trying to do. I was simply trying to make a statement. One of my pieces of evidence that God exists is the universal human drive to know God or gods. And what I said was, in light of how many people around the world have a desire to know God.
Do you see what you're doing, though? You're saying that everybody in the world is searching for...
I didn't say everybody.
What if the fire worshippers...
Most societies are looking for a general good, and thus you say everybody's trying to look for a general God. You can't say that. Other societies don't believe in a God. You can't apply your term of God to every society that exists.
I disagree strongly.
No,
I strongly disagree. The majority of people on the planet have an innate drive to know God, and the plethora of religions bear that out.
You're just assuming that.
I'm not assuming it. You study anthropology. You study cultures.
Humanity is looking for a general good, not a general God, okay? That's where you're going wrong. This is just one example that has happened before.
I disagree. The majority of people in the world are searching for some type of God, some type of superior being.
That's wrong. That is not wrong. Nobody in Buddhism is looking for a superior being.
That's a true statement. I agree in that way. That's the majority of the human beings. That's a true statement. Very true. In the world, he's looking way out in the world, not you or me or him, That's true.
You did not say the majority. You say every human being.
You did.
You said...
All right. No, I might have said every human being has an innate drive to know God.
It's mistakes like that.
No, I don't think that's a mistake.
Okay,
I'll stay with that statement. Every human being has an innate drive to know God. We can suppress that, and many of us do suppress that. But I will stand by that statement that every human being has an innate drive to know God.
All right, listen.
I don't know, I read it or I heard it. What if somebody comes to you and tells you, the gods are dead?
Right.
And you know the word dead. Dead is gone.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Where are we?
Well, I think it's real simple. God is dead. Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche is dead. God. Which one is true?
Nietzsche was not God.
No. Friedrich Nietzsche said, God is dead. My response to Friedrich Nietzsche is dead. God. The point is, God's not dead. What an incredible statement is that for Nietzsche to make? God is dead.
Yesterday you said the Lord, Jesus Christ, is God.
Yes?
Jesus Christ is crucified, he's dead.
Hey, he rose from the dead.
Well, where is he?
Where is he?
Yeah.
He's in heaven.
Now he's dead then.
No. He's alive.
I mean, you know, when you die and you go to when you die and you go to heaven, you're dead. I mean, you're not in life. That's my, philosophy of interpreting your words. I don't know whether I'm there or not. That's how I interpret your words. Am I correct?
All right. Let's go over it step by step. He died on a cross. He was put in a tomb.
Oh, we know that. We know the story. We know everything.
I don't think you all do. Maybe you do. I don't think everybody here does.
Yes, we know it. Everybody here knows. Everybody should. Well,
he was put in a tomb. A stone was rolled in front of the tomb. A Roman guard was set to make sure that nobody would steal his body.
Yes, we know the
all
story.
of his disciples dispersed in disillusionment. Case closed. The guy's dead.
There we go.
3 days after that, they saw him risen from the dead.
No, that's right. I'm following you. You're right. I agree. I know that. We know that. Everybody knows that.
So they saw Jesus over a period of 40 days. He appeared at different times in different places, risen from the dead.
That's right.
Then he ascended to heaven.
True.
So, you ask me, where's Jesus now? Well, he's not over in Palestine. He ascended to heaven.
Well, my point, you probably didn't get my point. Do you believe or do we have this great belief that Jesus Christ is returning to our planet?
He promised to return again.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yes, sir. He promised to return again. Correct.
So that's where you say he's still alive, somewhere, like you said, in heaven.
Yes.
That's your point.
Yes, sir.
That's kind of the definition of life is a little bit, I don't know, fluctuated here.
You bet.
What is life? There is life like they are trying to find that there is life all over. I don't know.
Okay, good point.
What
I don't know either.
What is it?
Okay.
So we just believe, huh? We just have this belief.
No. Based on the historical resurrection of Jesus from the dead,
yes,
I am convinced that when Jesus said that there's life after death, that he wasn't blowing smoke. He was speaking the truth.
Just for him or for everybody?
He promised that all of us who put our faith in him would receive eternal life. And because of his resurrection from the dead, I believe him. I went to college, and in college I would sit and learn from professors. The reason that I took what those professors said seriously was because the evidence was that they had studied hard, they had earned PhDs, they were educated men and women. Because of that evidence of reliability, I sat in class, paid a lot of money to learn from them. That's faith. The reason that I trust Jesus when he says there's life after death is not because he has some earned PhDs. Rather, it's because he was dead and then he rose from the dead. That convinces me he's a reliable source of information about life after death.
How about the timing now? Do we have any knowledge about the timing of his return?
Great question. I am personally embarrassed by those churches that take out advertisements in the Wall Street Journal and say, October 28th, Jesus Christ will return. No, in Matthew chapter 24, Jesus clearly said, no one knows the day or hour of my return. Not the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. So, sir, I do not know when Jesus is going to return.
So, that means, it's not that means, but it's like unlucky for those believers, super believers like you, for example. Say, I'm not saying, say somebody dies, like, a great believer dies tomorrow.
Yes.
And then in a year or so, Jesus Christ will come back to earth. What's the impact on their belief that those who are dead? Or would they know that their Lord came back, or would they do the same thing? I mean, you see what I'm saying?
That's a great point you're making. It's the exact point of the people in the church at Thessalonica.
The church of what?
In Thessalonica.
What's that?
That's a city near the Mediterranean over in Asia Minor. Paul, the Apostle Paul, who was a follower of Jesus, wrote a letter to this church at Thessalonica. And part of the letter is dealing with the exact issue you raised. These Christians saw their fellow believers dying. And they thought, oh no, they're dying and Jesus hasn't returned. What's going to happen? So you're asking the same question they were asking. I think it's great. And Paul writes in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, for the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with a trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. So, those believers in Thessalonica had the same question you did, and Paul says, don't worry, when a Christian dies, their body obviously rots, but when Jesus returns a second time, their body will be raised to life. They'll receive a new body like the resurrection body of Christ.
It's like it's going to be overpopulated.
Very good point. Excellent point.
I mean, billions of people.
That's right.
I mean, how?
Lots of people.
I mean, is it going to be... what is it?
Great point.
Are we imagining, or is this a true fact?
Great point.
Is this imagination, or is
No, Jesus wasn't imagining. He spoke real clearly.
Huh?
All right. He points out that heaven is not just God redoing this earth, but heaven includes the rest of the cosmos. So, believe it or not, there's a large... there's a large cosmos out there. So no, the cosmos is not going to be overpopulated. There'll be enough resources for everybody.